And we're live. Sorry about being 5 minutes late. Sometimes life gets in the way, and there are issues that you just have to tackle. So, welcome to the Masters edition of Who's Your Caddy with me, Kelly Phoenix, and Adam at Mr. Hallas. Woo! It doesn't get more exciting than that, except, Adam, for this. Hello, friends.
Did you see his sign off for the national championship?
Yes. Oh. You know what? Those little piano keys, if they don't give you goosebumps, I don't know what will. Honestly.
Yep. I like your green sweater.
Thank you. It was sort of intentional, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The Masters and all. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends. Have you seen Jim Nance's backyard? It is he's got like a little par 3. He's got himself announcing off the tee box. Like there's a speaker of his own voice announcing the like people teeing off.
I find that to be so amazing, and I'm completely jealous and yeah, wow, that is amazing. Well, people, normally we go through our tiers. We discuss our favorite picks from the high dollar to the mid dollar to the low dollar. But today we're discussing the Masters, and we're going to run things a little bit differently this week. Instead of going through tier by tier, we're going to talk about what to look for in your golfers this week. We're going to give you some information about the tournament, the course, any changes that might have been made, updates, and some of the kind of interesting and strange nuances that have happened with the field, including, special invitations and special, I don't know what you call it, bending the rules a little bit so that the LIV Tour players can still play in the majors. But before we jump into all of that, congratulations to longtime listener, viewer Wendy Early for winning her first DFS competition. Woo! Yeah. Way to go, Wendy. Good job. Good on you. I am really, really proud of Wendy. She has stuck to it week after week, paying attention. And, we don't build these lineups for you. We give you options of who the data shows would be your best bets. And then it's up to you as the gambler to put those together and create the most optimal lineup. And I can tell you that the last 2 weeks, while the picks in and of themselves have been good, the way that I put them together has not been so optimal. And last week was a bit of a crapshoot, actually. But the week prior was definitely just the way I opted to put things together. So it doesn't always pay off, even if you have all of the right picks. Kind of weird. But, Adam, pleasantries are out of the way. Do you have any pleasantries you want to add? What's going on with you?
Oh, I'm pleasant all the time. I don't need pleasantries to dash in there. Yeah, overall our picks have been doing pretty splendid. Overall, I'm at 76% for the year, but since the Arnold Palmer Invitational, I've been at 90%. So,
Holy crap. Way to go. I need to go back and look at my numbers from a certain point and then over the whole year. Arnold Palmer Invitational. I'll do that too. And I'll tell you next week.
yeah, average placement at 27th, so not too bad.
Not too bad. I love it. Well, first thing I want to talk about in our Masters special this week is a quick rundown of the course. What makes Augusta unique? Tell us about some of the most iconic holes that we should be watching for at the Masters.
There's nothing iconic at Augusta National whatsoever. I'm kidding. Everything is going to be a mess. And I'm going to say that the weather is not going to cooperate for the later half of Thursday into Friday. They are suspecting wind and rain, forecasting for most of Friday. I think going into Saturday morning. So it's going to be a little bit of a mess out there. But this Augusta National is particularly a long course. It averages about +2 scoring. So it is not a birdie fest. Average driving distance around 292 yards. Driving accuracy has been averaged around 71%. That tells you something. And then average fairway width about 54 yards. And then greens and regulation about 60%. And so I tell you all that because there's so much talent coming into the Masters that you have to find nuances within the players. So we go into the course, and some of the main things about this course are amen corner. So you're going to be talking about 11th, 12th, and 13th holes. And folks, let me tell you, they keep extending and lengthening the holes. So the 13th, they've extended, and they've added some bunkers, the par fives, both. So the one par five was extended in 2022, or so last year. It's been a long year, and 2021. Anyway, they extended the par fives by 35 yards. So what would happen is players will play 13 and try for 2, obviously to get a chance for that eagle, right? Well, they lengthened that. They said, "Screw you guys. We don't want any eagles." And so that's what's going to happen. So Amen's corner, you're looking at 11, 12, 13. 12th hole, it's been quoted as saying more green jackets have been lost at the 12th than Augusta's city dry cleaners. So it's definitely a tough hole. There's a creek that intersects in the 13th fairway near the tee that parallels the front edge of the green on the short, and finally swirls alongside the 11th green. So it kind of goes in between this creek, in between these 11th, 12th, and 13th hole. Plus, you have swirling wind. You have pine straw off on the rough. You have a lot of trees. And so you're going to be looking for those that can do a high draw. So Rory is one of those people. Typically, low line hitters don't do well here. So it's quite a difficult course. So yeah.
I'm on mute. That's cool. Yeah, I think you're right. The low lying hitters, that's a great point because I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But on the 13th hole, this is something I had been thinking about. They extended it. I was preparing for a fantasy draft for the Masters specifically. And when I was thinking about Scheffler or Rahm or even Rory, but mostly between Scheffler and Rahm as my first pick, because I had the first pick, I counted up holes where a fade versus a draw versus a straight drive would come into play. And knowing that Scheffler plays a fade, right? Yeah. I was thinking, man, with this 13th hole extension, that doesn't necessarily come into play anymore. And I found that there were more straight drives plus draw holes versus fade holes this year. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it. Maybe not. But do you agree that the longer hole kind of takes that fade, being able to play a fade out of play? It's more of a straight tee shot at this point?
I think it definitely. So Augusta National itself is a second shot course, so you're looking for those people that can hit those mid irons pretty well. I think it does take that little fade out. If anything, we've learned in the past that you just can't bully your way through this course, and that was
Right.
before they extended it. Bryson DeChambeau is an excellent example. So I think Scheffler will have to play very conservative. He'll have to play a different type of game than what he's used to in the past. And yes, he's done well here, but he's done well here prior to a lot of the extensions that they've played on this course. So
Yeah, that was kind of my thought too. Okay, let's talk about weather. We had touched base, I think it was you and I. Somebody and I had touched base earlier about there's a potential for some weather coming up here in Augusta during the tournament. So I did a little bit of reading up golfers who play well despite poor weather conditions. Obviously, there is Tiger Woods. He is still Tiger Woods. He has this amazing ability to manage the course and is one of those players that can really control his shot with the spin. So if you're not familiar with golf, when the ball lands, like he knows how to make it not spin and roll away, or spin and roll where he wants it to, handle that shot despite the weather conditions. Another player like that is Jon Rahm. So when you talked about low hitting, I think were you referring to scoring or like the actual trajectory of the ball?
trajectory of the ball.
Perfect, because Jon Rahm has that, like a flat backswing. It keeps the ball like a low burner, and a lot of people will call that a wind cheater. That's kind of what he's able to do. Again, controls his shot by being able to take the spin off, which is really helpful in windy weather. And of course, obviously, our minds go to UK players because it's frequently windy over there. Rory, Fleetwood, Stenson, Usti, playing in crappy weather is kind of par for the course in the UK. Do you have players that you try to avoid when there is weather involved?
Are you asking me to name names or like types of players?
Do you have anybody that comes to mind when you think of a player that just falls to pieces in weather?
That just falls to pieces in the weather. Well, one of the key factors you want to look for in weather is scrambling ability. And so when you look at those people that are able to kind of get themselves out of trouble, you have to look at those that can, kind of keep their shot low and kind of keep their composure as maybe not hit the green because the wind's swirling around in those around the course and the aim-in corner and stuff like that. So a lot of people I try to avoid are Patrick Reed is going to be one of them. He's on the LIV Tour. I'm going to say Brooks Koepka is also on that LIV Tour no good weather list. The other person that typically I look at too is, I hate to say this, but is JT Poston and then Shane Lowry. I don't think those two guys will be doing well during the weather. But I know Shane Lowry's on a lot of people's lists to kind of knock it out of the park here, but I don't see it happening.
Well, dang, I drafted him. That's
I mean,
but there are other players too that have performed well. I know that Jason Day is another pretty composed player in different situations, and Tony Finau. I actually looked that up because I'm like, really? But Tony Finau seems to be a player that can maintain his composure during weather. I looked up the weather
it's not pretty.
just now, and it is awful.
Yeah, like
We're
Friday all day.
It looks like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 80% chance of rain on Friday, 90 on Saturday, 80 on Sunday. So our weekend is looking really gross. The wind right now is really not much, but when we look at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're looking at about 10 to 14 mile per hour winds, which is pretty windy on a golf course.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly windy. Now, again, the parts of the holes are kind of tucked back a little bit and kind of have their own little wind valleys going on back there. So it could be 20 miles per hour by the time it hits that valley, or it could be dead. So it is, and I bet you we finish the course or finish the tournament on Monday.
They're definitely, if it's going to rain like that, they're going to have to finish on Monday at the very soonest. I'm guessing. So, hey, Gemmo, what's up? Cheers. Boop. All right, moving on. There are some interesting nuances, as I mentioned at the start of the show, in this year's Masters tournament. There are always every year players who have been given special exemptions to play, whether they've been like an outstanding rookie or there's all kinds of circumstances where people are extended these special exemptions or invitations to play. We have players who have lifetime exemptions to play in the tournament. So we see some of our favorite oldies out there and players who abandon the PGA Tour for the LIV Tour, and they have been deemed allowed to compete in this major. What are your thoughts? Are there any names that stand out on you and stand out for you as an exemption or a LIV player?
There's a couple of LIV players I've been looking at, and four people on my list that stand out on top of me.
You're a jerk face.
Taylor Gooch, DJ, Kevin Na, and then Mito Pereira. I think those four are going to do well here. They've been doing pretty well on the LIV Tour. DJ and Kevin Na hasn't been doing that bad as well. He's been, I would say, between average placement of in the teens. Now they only play 3 rounds of golf. They don't play 4 rounds of golf, and there's slight nuances to their tournaments. And so it's a Fuji apple comparing to a Granny Smith apple. Like they both play golf, they both play in a tournament. There's slight differences. So those are the 4 that I'm going for, only because they all have good history here. They've been doing well on approach, second shot. They've been doing well on the putting, and they're good around the green.
I was just thinking that Mito was the one that really stood out for me, and I actually drafted him initially. I can't remember if I dropped him or kept him. If I dropped him, it was because I was worried the player pool was going to dry up in my league, because I found out it wasn't just this tournament, it's for a few weeks. And so I'm like, shoot, if I keep him and I keep Tiger for the fantasy points, then I may not be able to get anybody from the pool good enough to fill the spot. So I hurried up and made some changes. That being said, Mito stood out for me as well. The one thing that concerns me with LIV players is that they're not playing like competition level golf anymore. They're playing, at least to me, it seems like they're playing with their friends. It's cool. They have a team. They get paid whether they, just to show up, basically. So it makes me feel less confident in the competitive ability of some of these players. I mean, you don't think that?
I think you're right on that aspect, that the level of play is different. I think both leagues, let's call it, are going to have chips on their shoulder. And so this is the first tournament where both LIV and PGA players have been the first major, let's call it, that have been allowed to coexist in the same ecosystem. So I think it's probably going to be one of the most watched majors or Masters in a long time. I think they're going to pair LIV and PGA players up after the first or second round. I can tell you that. And so I think they're going to show up to play in that aspect, that they just want to show that the LIV Tour players can play just as well as the PGA players.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I know everybody really tunes in because they want to hear some of the players that we are high on this week. And when I look at course fit, especially, we're talking about a strong approach. We're talking about decent driving distance also. Putting, I would say accuracy in specific areas of the course, but overall, I was looking at driving distance, approach, a sprinkling of putting, and maybe even a little more around the green. And for me, my first pick ended up being Jon Rahm. And if I were to map this out as a shape, that's almost the perfect shape for me for course fit. I love Jon Rahm. I love Thigala. I know that's maybe crazy, but I like it a lot. I like Finau. Same reason. Basically, if you're picturing like this weird little shape, I'll have to draw it for you and put it on Twitter. These guys really match up. So Rahm, Thigala, Finau, Homa. I like Homa a lot as well. And I'm nervous, but I felt like Tyrrell Hatton kind of falls in here, but he's been so volatile that it's like, whoa, sir, settle down. But those are probably my very favorite. Thigala being that kind of wild card in there. Rahm, obviously a top pick, and Finau tossed in there. Homa.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
So I went with Rory. I like Rory on this one.
I do like Rory too, and a lot of people do. Do you think it's like heart? Like, is it just like his time and it's been so like, ooh.
He is, now this is going to be a dated and very niche reference, but he is the Susan Lucci of the Masters golf.
For those who don't know, it could be related to always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Yeah. She was a daytime actress, and she was nominated, like the most actress nominated, and she never won.
Never won.
So anyway, Rory has come in second. He's come in the top 10 like how many times? And he's just never been able to grab that green jacket. I like Jason Day for the reasons that we talked about. I think his putting is going to be key here. The greens are just undulating. They're fast. And especially with the winds and the rain, you're not going to be able to get it pinpoint placement like next to the hole. So you're going to have a long putt. A couple of value players I'm looking at are Taylor Moore. The only thing I worry about him is he doesn't have course history. and the stats and the numbers say that people that are playing here for the first time don't do well. But his numbers kind of shake out okay for value. So if you're stacking your lineup with a lot of the favored people towards the top, he's a good guy to keep in there. And so I like him as well. I like Justin Rose. I like Tommy Fleetwood.
I like Fleetwood too. I will say that. I actually did I draft him? I think I drafted him.
Yeah.
Taylor Moore, I looked him up for course fit. He's a very well-rounded player, so I think that's fair when you're looking for a value pick. That's pretty much all you can ask for is well-roundedness at that point. It's not like you're able to seek out somebody who's a specialist in approach or a specialist off the tee when you're dwindling down to players with less experience or less wins under their belt.
Yeah. I think I was going to say one player that I think might surprise us is Justin Thomas. If he can get his putting in order, I think he can surprise people.
Vegas seems to agree.
I'm sad that Ricky Fowler didn't make it.
Well, I managed to get my picks in before I got on my flight to California, and I'm just going to tell you my lineup.
Okay.
Because why not? It's kind of based on my research, some of it, because I didn't quite get all of it in before I got on the flight. And then the other part of it was just my experience going through that live fantasy draft. And so I pulled all that together, and I ended up with Jason Day, Tony Finau. My value pick was Hoagie.
He's another good one. He's number one in approach, I think. So
yeah, Mito, John Rahm, and Thigala. That is my lineup.
Those are good.
So follow me blindly if you'd like. But that's where I landed, and I feel pretty good about it. I put in a handful of props. If you're interested in props and want to know what the heck I did, I'm happy to share them with you as well. I did, I don't know if it's still available. You might want to check now because tomorrow it may not be available. But on DraftKings, there is pre-built player parlays. So this one was a parlay that has Scottie Scheffler in the top 5, Rory in the top 10, Rahm in the top 20. And it was at plus 550 when I put the bet down. I was like, that kind of sounds like a no-brainer. So I went with it. I also, at plus 3,500, JT, Justin Thomas, top 5. Jason Day, top 10. Morikawa, top 20. And then I have a bet for Rory to win and a bet for Finau to win, just as my little outliers for funsies. Not that Rory's an outlier, but it was at plus 1,000 with a bonus on top.
Oh, yeah.
So take advantage of those opt-in bonuses. It was at plus 700, and with my bonus, it pushed it to plus 1,000 by opting in to the DraftKings bonus. So those are my props that I have going. I like it. It feels pretty good, and I think maybe we'll make some money this week.
Yeah, it's got to be the Masters. You got to wear a green jacket to get the green, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I guess that's it. Do you have anything else to add this week?
No, have fun out there. Yeah, it's going to be a crazy tournament. It's not. I have a feeling it's not going to be like the typical. Oh, it's Friday, sweat it out. It's going to be a Saturday morning sweat.
It is. Oh, Doug put a really interesting comment in here. Only twice in the past 50 years has a Masters tournament required a Monday finish. 1973, 1983. Both ended with a 3. So 2023.
It's possible.
I also heard a stat from somebody at work and Googled it, and it's true that Jordan Spieth has won on Easter Sundays. And this happens to be an Easter Sunday. I think it was 2 Easter Sundays for Jordan Spieth. So.
I mean, I could see that, I guess. Yeah.
And this is an Easter Sunday, but I don't think it's going to be Jordan Spieth. But it's an interesting factoid, I guess.
It is an interesting factoid. It's one of those, like, there's so many horses for courses players in this tournament that it really is like, oh yeah, I could see Spieth doing it. But that's where you have to really dig in and figure out the nuances of this course and try to match up the course to the player. So
yeah, I was actually just going to try and see if I could get that in again. Okay, Jordan Spieth's last 2, so it's not Masters victories, but Jordan Spieth's last 2 PGA Tour victories have been on Easter Sunday. The final round of the 87th Masters will be played on Easter Sunday, and Spieth says that's good vibes as he makes his 10th Masters appearance.
Jesus emerging from the cave going, that's good vibes.
That's good vibes. And on that note, thank you all for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know it wasn't our usual show, but we gave some picks, we gave some props, we talked about the course, the weather, some of the crazy nuances. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. I'm at Kelly in Phoenix. That is Adam at Mr. Hallas.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's me.
We're here for you. Let's do it.
Awesome.
So I'm going to try this again this week, going out with music, but I'm going to just do this real quick.
So long, friends.
Bye, friends.